all these guys doing the same thing I'm doing. I'll do something they won't do. I'll kill their first children. I know they ain't killers, but I'm a killer. You feel me?
Yeah, they flip the story, man.
Yeah. Any more questions? And with that, I'll pass the mic over to my brother, my cat, Atumre. Any questions at this time? Questions?
It's coming.
All right. A lot of moms working here. Go right ahead. That's up.
My question is, if someone can see more than one dimension, like things like auras and beings and things of that nature, does that mean they're vibrating on a higher frequency or multiple frequencies?
Okay, that's a very good question. I would say yes to that question. There are people here who have enough discipline in themselves, right, where they have more control than the average person, where they don't have as much distractions, where they're able to see lights that people can't see, or see forms of energies that other people cannot see. You know what I'm saying? Or people bring themselves into a state where they can be contacted by beings who operate on a certain level or a certain frequency, or interdimensional beings. So they're actually able to vibrate on that level. This is why, if anybody knows about meditation is a very necessary discipline, as much as praying, because when you're meditating, you're in a state of silence. When you're praying, you're speaking or you're requesting. You know, you're giving thanks or you're making a connection. When you're meditating, you're listening. You bring your body down to a certain type of level. Also, when you're in a dream state, that's another level where people are able to make contact with interdimensional beings, or beings who vibrate on a certain wavelength, on a mental frequency. So yes, it is possible. You know what I'm saying, to see that. And speaking about aura, our master teacher also revealed that there was a man by the name of Curlian. Anybody here heard of Curlian photography before?
Yes.
Okay, anybody knows about that and how it works? Okay, that's right. But our bodies are actually emitting certain kind of energies, electromagnetic energies, and they have a photography that can actually capture that. Even if you're missing a limb, that energy source is still there. It shows this is what it is. So that's just more proof that there are things that our eyes cannot detect, and even our ears cannot detect, that exist here in the state. Just like a bee, right, can see colors on different wavelengths that we cannot see. You know, they see colors that's like phenomenal, you know, but we only limited to a small range of the electromagnetic spectrum of light energy anyway. You know. You good? Enter that one. Okay, go ahead, brother. How are you today?
I'm good, yourself?
All right.
Yeah, I'd like to compliment you guys on this lovely setting right here. It's real nice.
Tell me
New
that.
here.
Okay.
I have a question, man. I understand about when you say communicating telepathically. Basically, it's almost as if you're using walkie-talkies or radios. You transmit and you receive.
Yes.
Now, to me, that sounds real doable. You know what I'm saying? Because the way you and I communicate right now is I'm using my vocal cords to send out and manipulate the wave patterns, the wave, the dimension that we can't see, this whole medium, the air, whatever, to vibrate your inner ear bone, right? And you can hear me, just like everybody else. That's how we communicate. Now, my thing is this. Okay, now I understand how we could, the same way we can hear ourselves talk, there may be another way where we can internally, I can internally transmit via these same airwaves using, I don't know, using whatever. But here's my thing, but that would have to be definitely on the highest frequency. And here's my thing right here. Now, with the advent, in the time that this was done, we had no air conditioners running. We had no fluorescent lights buzzing. We had no internal combustion engines ride down the street. We didn't have the Industrial Revolution. We didn't have all these other frequencies manipulating that inner ear bone. or whatever it is internally that we use to transmit and receive. Now, do you feel that it would inherently become more difficult now that mankind has progressed and created machinery to cause all these different noises and vibrations that will, I don't cloud the airways and make it, you know what I'm saying, not as conducive as it once was in the past?
Okay. I would say, this is how I would answer your question. The fact is, mankind is on the verge of creating artificial means of actually doing that. Back then, when we were in our right state, right, a lot of these things were and still are doable. The fact is, our master teacher taught us about, at one point in time, before we were maimed, we had a gland that's missing. It's called the barytheric gland, right? The barytheric gland gave us the ability to have 4 higher senses, and telepathy was one of those senses. In this day and time, those people who are considered psychics, the real ones, have traces of those nerve endings still where the gland was held, and this is why they have those extra senses, where they may have traces of those, but not to its fullest extent, in other words. So in the state that we're operating, we're actually maimed, you know what I'm saying? Now, our master teacher also pointed out this, we have such a connection that, you know, the more we're around each other, the more we can actually feed off each other's mind waves. Meaning this, first of all, thought is a frequency. When you think, that's a certain frequency, that's a certain pattern of energy that can actually be tracked and transmitted. You know what I'm saying? It could be transmitted audibly or through thought form also. You know what I'm saying? And that goes back to what the brother brought up earlier as far as the technology that we had back in ancient times when we deal with harmonic stones that dealt with holding in information and affirmation. You know what I'm saying? And that can be transmitted in the form of binary codes into our own quantum computer, which is our brain. You understand? I hope I'm not moving too fast. If so, you know, I'll try to break it down a little bit more for you. But the fact is, at one point in time, in our natural state, before we were maimed, we had those 4 higher senses. And there are some people today who still exhibit that. You know what I'm saying? As far as these real psychics, I ain't gonna say so-called psychic, because the word psych means to lie. You understand? So, but in this day and time, they have the means to create an artificial means of doing that. You know, an example is cell phones. Cell phones are shrinking more and more. Soon, they can put it in your teeth or somewhere, or implant it in your head, and you're able to actually call somebody at random. You know, it's possible. You know, at one point in time, these things were considered science fiction. You know what I'm saying? That they, you know, even though it says science fiction, it still shows you that it's a possibility. You know, before cloning was a fact, it was said that, or in this day and time, it was said that it was not a probability. You know, oh, it's just fantasy, but now it's possible. So there's nothing that's impossible in this day and time. And you best believe they do have the technology to actually replicate, right? Use some artificial means. Yeah, replicate those things that were natural to us at one point in time. You understand? The thing is, in this day and time, we have to really study ourselves. We have to study every aspect of ourselves, inside out and outside in. How our skin works, how our body works, how our organs functions, our melanin, how it's affected by light, how you're affected by sound. All these things has the ability to affect you because you're trying to get on your own station. Once you're on your own station and you're activated, then you have the ability to actually do these things we once done. But in the mindset that we are in now, it's dangerous. You know what I'm saying? This is why these things have to be removed. It's dangerous because we learn to think outside of our own frequency. We're not operating on a frequency. If you understand what I mean by frequency, it's like this. Name something that we do that's African. Are we not Africans? Name something that you do on a daily basis that's considered African. In America.
Name something I do.
Don't say breathe a shower.
I mean, I can't think of too many things that I do on a daily basis that's not African.
Absolutely, because we speak American, we think American, you know what I'm saying, we dress American, we walk American, we have to survive in American society that's created, but it's distracting us from being who we are by our natural nature. There are laws, like the brother brought up earlier, that's literally going against your own nature. You know, when you was in Africa and something grew on a tree you took, if you walk by a market and you pick up something to eat, they call it stealing. You see a shiny rock on the ground, you know, it's nice to put that in my pocket. You walk by a store and see something that belongs to you, and you decide to take it, you're doing what? You're stealing. You have to be caged, you're locked up, you're a criminal. Just small things, but the fact is, on a deeper level, there are things that we do as Africans that we don't do anymore. You know what I'm saying? And it's getting worse and worse with each generation. So now, Wu-nuwaup is the solution, it's the answer. It's like taking you from where you are now and putting you back on the starting line, where you were in your greatness. You know what I'm saying? And that's the key.
Hey, speak, I got one last question.
Sure thing, bro.
Now, the Wu-Nuwaupian movement is, how do you relate that, how does that relate to, because you also have, it's also a revival of, a lot of African Americans are gravitating now towards Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a whole awakening, it's a whole movement. How do you guys, what's your position on African Americans being part, not only African Americans, the whole African diaspora, whether you're in South America, the Caribbean, Canada, the UK, being part of the tribes, the 12 tribes? What's your position on that?
Well, it's a very long, I'm glad you asked that question, you know. Go ahead. Okay. That's a very long topic to really cover. The fact is, right, it's all a part of the spell. Meaning this, think about it this way, 400 years ago, you were in Africa, being an African, practicing African, raising your children as an African, right? Keep that in mind. You were taken from your homeland that God placed you, in other words, right? Where you grew, everything you needed was right there. You were taken from there and brought to a foreign land where you do not belong. And what makes it so bad is those kidnappers, right? Not only did they enslave you with physical labor, they enslaved your mind, right? With their diseased doctrine. And let me tell you why. Because when you were taken from Africa and brought here, you were forbidden to speak what? Your language. So they cut your tongue off, right? Your eyes were blindfolded so you could only see what they want you to see. You can receive the right tones in your ears that works with your chemistry to move and to live according to your vibration or your calibration with you and your tribe, right? You were cut off from being an African and you was given a way or a book that was not conducive to your matrix. You know what I'm saying? And this is your isms. This is your religionisms that they gave you. You are not an Arab. You are not a Hibaru or a Shasu. Those were ancient names that we gave them that operated off this particular doctrine. So being that we have this now in our mind, and we've been cultivated with this, you know what I'm saying? The drive for a culture is there, but we're operating on the wrong frequency. It's not our stuff. Our job as Nuwaupians, right, is to step up, to learn all these things, and to wake our people up, to bring them from the state of being what they're not to who and what they are. That is our job. And it started with our master teacher doing that to every last one of us that's here today. And he started this mission back in 1963. And in 1970s, he opens the door to right knowledge, to the right information. You understand? And he took us to those degrees of Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. We sat down, we practiced it to its pristine purity. I'm talking about ate, dressed, spoke. My first language was Arabic because I was raised speaking that during that time. You know what I'm saying? So it's our job as Nuwaupians to wake our people up. But we know how sensitive it is because our people are holding on to their white man doctrine so bad. Excuse me if anybody sees that as racism. But that's what it is. They gave us their stuff, you know what I'm saying, so we could think like them, so we could fear their gods and worship their gods. And it's time for change. Go ahead, brother.
I respectfully interject something. But see, unlike Christianity, Hinduism, and Islam, Judaism, yes, it's a religion, but first and foremost, it's a people. It's in the DNA that's flowing through your bloodstream. If you're part of the 12 tribes of Abraham,
Shit,
that
lost
means,
records of time.
that means you are a descendant of Abraham. You want to, you know, you want to his. I can't become, I don't know what your last name is, young fella, but I can't become her son because she has written a book. And I want to say, hey, I want to join your book and I want to become your son.
Mhm.
She didn't give birth, he didn't give birth to me. We don't share the same DNA. So that's why Judaism is unlike any other modern religion.
But
Because
here's
it's
the thing
a-
about Judaism, brother. Judaism is what birthed Christianity.
Exactly.
First of all, Judaism, right, everybody relates to Father Abraham. All your monotheistic religion, whether it be Christianity, Islam, or Judaism, has one connection. They all relate to one man named Abraham, whose real name was Abram. Let me ask you a question. Where did the character Abraham come from?
Where did the character Abraham?
Yes, where did he come from? According to the Bible, where did he come from? Where did
I'm not
Father
sure.
Abraham?
I'm not sure what's out there.
Okay, I'll tell you. What was that, brother? He came from a place called Ur of Chaldea.
Right.
He came from a place called Ur. That's right. That's Mesopotamia today.
It was
That's right.
Babylon back then.
That's right.
Right.
Babylon, as you call it. You know what I'm saying? That's where he's from,
Right.
right? And he was on a journey.
Mhm.
This person named Abraham. And when he crossed the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, a group of people saw him. Not Canaanites, what are they called?
Phoenicians.
Huh? Canaanites or Phoenicians, they saw this man and they said, oh, Hebrew, in their language. Even the word Hebrew, which means one who crosses over, which is an action. You know what I'm saying? When he crossed the Tigris and Euphrates River, he was called a Hebrew. This is why they said he was the first Hebrew. But keep in mind, this was a dialect of the Phoenicians who saw this person. This is why you'll find the Hebrew and the Phoenician gods are the same, because they worship the same gods from Chaldea, right? And this deal with the worship of Nanar, the bright one or the shining one, who was over that region of land, who ruled those particular people with that doctrine. We adopted that later, but we as African was under a deity by the name of Ptah, or Tahites, right? And Nanar ruled Mesopotamia. This is pre-Bible. I'm taking you right now.
No, I feel you. I follow you. But now, when they seen Abraham and they said, hey, Hebrew, at that point, at that very point in time, did the Hebrew language exist? Because if you look up Hebrew in the dictionary, it says Afro-Asiatic language. So at the very moment that they said, Abraham, hey, Hebrew, did the Hebrew language, I understand your distinction between Hebrew being a person, but there's also a Hebrew language. That's one of the oldest languages known to mankind, Hebrew.
Yeah, I'm gonna rotate this class real quick. Yeah, go ahead.
Like what this is. Listen, let me break this down to you. You can go to any charts and look up the Egyptian language pictograph, and it'll actually show you how the Hebrew language was grafted out of Egypt. First of all, Abraham was a Chaldean. They speak Babylonian. In modern time, we call it cuneiform, right? Now, Egyptians speak hieroglyphics. When you combine both those languages, you create a hybrid language or a dialect called Arabic, Syriac, and Arabic Hebrew.
Right.
Hebrew cannot be the first language because at the Tower of Babel, God said, I came down and confirmed man's language, right?
Right.
What region was that located at the time? Can everybody say it?
Sumer.
Sumer. Were they speaking Sumer?
Wonderful.
They don't speak Hebrew. And Abraham is from Sumer. So Hebrew could not be the first language because before Nimrod and the language got changed, he was creating the Tower of Babel, which is called Babylon in ancient Mesopotamia. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Huh? So it could have been Hebrew. Like he said earlier, Hebrew was a title given to Abraham when he crossed over. It's a verb, it's an action. I'm crossing over.
Right.
You hear me? So it couldn't have been Hebrew because the word Adamah is not a Hebrew word. Or Adam is actually a Sumerian word. It comes from the Adamah. You hear me?
All right. Now, at that point in time,
And the word Hawa is not even Hebrew. It's an ancient Arab word, Aqua. See, what happened is this. I'm going to paint the story for you like I always did in class. There was these white people. They ain't had nothing. And they said, you know what? I'm going to go over here and see what they got over here. So they made a journey to Egypt. And they said, I'll work my way up. I'll clean floors. I'll do whatever I got to do. I'll work the land. Right? And they were good workers. And they work. You know, what happens when you're a good worker? You get rewarded with what? more money,
Money.
and a new title.
Right.
But when you get do you do a good job at your job, what do you get? A promotion.
Promotion.
They got promoted. They worked their way up from servants to officials. And from officials, they found somehow became a pharaoh of a city called Thebes, right? They didn't have a problem with the first ones that came there. See, what happened is this, you gotta understand the Caucasian mentality. They never heard that term, I come in peace? You heard that before?
I heard it.
They're real good at that, they mastered that school. I come in peace. Meaning that they actually really are sincere about that. I got offers, I give you whatever you want. They've done this is a formula they've been using for years. For 6,000 years they've been using this formula, and it works. I come in peace, I bring gifts. You don't have a problem with the person that brings the peace, you got a problem with the descendants. Because when they came to Africa with Shaka Zulu, they ain't had no problem with them. But the descendants. Came to America's pilgrims, they ain't had no problem with pilgrims. It was the descendants. When they came to Brazil, and we can keep going all over. They came and gave gifts, tobacco, beers, weapons, you gave gifts. It was the descendants. I don't need to follow these niggas, take this stuff. I feel that we should just take it. This is their mentality. So when they came to Egypt, they had the same mentality. Let's take it. They took over Thebes. The black pharaohs couldn't just take them out like that because they respect. See, you understand, Egypt had honor. If you earned your position, I can't take it from you because you earned that position. But what happened is they start going against the Egyptians' culture. Apophis was living 500 miles away from the Nile River, but he had a problem with the hippopotamus. Now, you know in America, what's the national animal of America?
Eagle.
Eagle.
No, that's what they say.
The dog.
Say it again.
Dog.
Michael Vick is a recipient of what happens when you mess with their dog, their animal. You think it's the eagle, but what's man's best friend called?
Dog.
They love the dog. They treat the dog better than they treat niggas. You hear me? In Egypt, it will be equivalent would be the hippopotamus. That was a national, national animal right there. And the Apophis had a problem with that, saying the noise from the hippopotamus was irritating them. Knowing that he's 500 miles away from the Nile River. So there's a person named Sekinaway Tao, he was insulted by that. Like, you tripping. So what happened, he started slowing the hippopotamus. Now he started killing their national animal. Hippopotamus is a very powerful animal. If you look at the history of the hippopotamus, it'll kill a crocodile quick. Did you know that? Snap it right in half. It actually protects other animals from getting killed by the crocodile. Did you know that? You look it up. Any animal get attacked by hippopotamus, it will actually
That's right.
will stop the crocodiles from eating the animal up. It will protect it. They got footage on YouTube that show hippopotamus giving deer mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, bro, trying to bring it back. The alligator, the crocodile drowned it. Hippopotamus is online, look it up, don't believe me. They had footage on there. You know what I'm saying? But what happened is, he killed the hippopotamus, the people was pissed off, war broke out. Apophis sent 3 assassins, had this pharaoh killed, then his sons went to war with them. Ran them out of Egypt, across the burning desert. Sounds familiar? Huh? And when they got kicked out, they said, you know what? Instead of me being kicked out of Egypt and being causing problems for 400 years, I'm going to tell them that I was in bondage to them. The reason why you can't find no records of these Hebrew Israelites on the walls of Egypt. There's no records of them on the walls of Egypt. There's no records on the walls of Babylon. There's no records on the walls of Greece, and there's no record of them on the walls of Rome. And this is all written in stone. Now, this paper book is all talking about Egypt and Babylon and Nebuchadnezzar and Ramses II and Bimelech. It's all in that book. But when I go to these places that they mention these are historical places that's real, there's no records.
That's right.
So these people are myth.
Come on.
But when you go into Egypt and find out the true name of them, these were the troublemakers. They got kicked out and went back to Canaan and changed their name and said, I'm going to call myself a Hebrew. You hear me? And I'm going to say, instead of me getting kicked out of Egypt and causing problems, I'm going to say I was a slave to niggas. Because if the white man say he's a Jew, then you saying the Jews were in Africa under black people? They're not going to say that. You hear me?
See that right there, that very spot right there, what you talk about. I was following all of it. And that's the biggest thing right there that have people, that causes the great divide, almost like with the Islams and the Christians against the Holy Trinity. It's right there, that very point when you talk about okay, how could Moses was snuck into the Pharaoh household and Pharaoh was convinced that was
Yeah, that means he had to look like Pharaoh.
He would have to look like Pharaoh.
Yeah.
So now you, by what you're saying, you lead me to believe that the Egyptian, the Jews, the Hebrews that the Egyptian enslaved was Europeans.
Yeah.
Now how could, now
No, because
Moses-
no,
now
I'm saying that if you look at modern times, these so-called people that say Israel, not niggas, those are white, Nebuchadnezzar, Saharan Jews. Russian, Khazars, yeah. They're claiming that they're the original Jews. So I'm asking, from the white man's perspective, if you're the original Jews, are you saying that you were in bondage to black people?
No.
I understand what you're saying,
No,
though.
no.
I understand what you're saying about the black thing.
Maybe I'm not being specific enough.
No, I understand what you're saying. About the black thing, about them both being
Right,
black. Yeah.
disregarding the modern day European
Yeah,
converts
yeah.
in Israel. I'm not talking about that.
I hear you, yeah.
I'm talking about the people even that you consider the troublemakers. The
Yeah,
word is troublemakers.
they was be depicted as black inside the book.
Now, is it your position that they actually were African descendants?
I'm gonna tell you like this. The spell is so fantastically put on us that it created layers. Meaning that they knew it was gonna come a day and time that you was gonna break out of a certain spell, and they had another one behind it. It's like a spell, it's like a bubble inside of a bubble. Once you bust the other bubble, you're still in the bubble. They knew that you was gonna actually go back, but they said they were black. But the thing is that, did they exist? Well, no matter what color you put on them, did they exist? See, we gotta understand is that when they were copying the story from Egypt so fast, right? You gotta remember that these were Asiatics, not Africans. You got two black people on planet Earth. You got a Hindu black man that's darker, just like me and you, but he has fur. Then you got an African that got wool.
Right.
When you talk about Afro-Asian, you talk about Nubians.
But see, right there, if you look at the definition of Hebrew, the definition of Hebrew.
From who?
Webster's Wikipedia.
Okay, who's Webster? Okay, who's Webster? Do you
I know
know?
all these, I don't know personally, but
Okay.
I imagine they're Europeans.
Okay, now watch this. Listen, you got to understand this. You're dealing with language now,
Right.
right? And whoever controls the language controls the meaning.
Right. But
This
you almost, but
No, this is why we learn our own language.
But you supported, you supported the definition by what you was just
No,
saying.
I understand it because we're speaking. Listen, we're speaking English right now.
Right.
I can go into Arabic. I can go into Hebrew. This is one of the listen to something. This is one of the events that Malachi York had over all the religious leaders.
Right.
He spoke 19 languages. He said, because the stuff I'm giving you are in the language, it's garbage. But I had to give it to you because this is what you speak. Listen, there's people in here right now, was like he said, they were raised speaking Arabic fluently because they had to read the Quran in original form because there was a lot of crap in it in English and it's crap in Arabic because the Quran wasn't even real. It was plagiarized by the Roman Catholic Church, right?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But the whole thing is that the master of the school of Islam, we had to become doctors, or what you call interns. Dr. York is a doctor, and we had to diagnose him. You got a bad case of Islamism. I understand what you're going through, but this, and we had to diagnose him. You hear me? Right now, you're in a state of Judaism. That's another disease. We call it Mosism, right?
Right.
This is the worst spell to Islam and Christianity because this is the father of all religions. But you don't understand that this religion came out of Mesopotamia, out of what's called the Wu-nuwaup and the Gilbert Connected by Asiatic black men that you call Hindus. You hear me?
Right.
Who raped the Africans that came in there and created another hybrid. These hybrids brought these religions into Africa. It was like an African mixed with a Hindu. You ever see that combination before?
Like Somalia, Ethiopia.
Yeah, exactly. Those are Afro-Asian. Now wait, I'm gonna get you finished, right? Now, we gotta use English because you don't speak the language of our ancestors. Because we've been here in America far too long. So when we look at the word and say, well, we read this whole book in English, and in order for me to relay the message to you, I gotta give you what they gave you. Now, we have language classes on Wednesday. We learn the language. Like I said, certain words they can't find in the English language from the ancient languages. There's words that they can't even translate, so they give you an equivalent, something similar to it. Like the word akak doesn't mean light or fire, but this is the only word they can find that they thought will actually fit that. The word spirit means breath. But in our ancient language, the ka don't mean breath. It's a life force. But they don't understand the ancient languages because they're speaking dialects. Webster was a Christian. Faulkner and Wagner were Christian Jews, you hear me? So we're getting definitions by somebody whose ideology is a religious background that's based on racism.
Okay.
So we shouldn't even be speaking English, period. This is why our master teacher said, put emphasis on speaking our own tone. Because you speak English, I'm not going to sit there and speak another language to you. I had to communicate it in the language of the oppressor.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying? So I had to give you what you want, so you can want what I have to give, which is the facts.
Right.
So what I'm saying is with the Hebrews, is that there's different layers of the spell. You hear me? You got different layers.
Right.
Now, if you go into Egypt, Moses had to be black. According to you read the story, and the Pharaoh had to be black, and the Jews, in order for the Jews to mix in, they had to be black. But it's still a spell.
It's a spell.
It's still no, because whether it's you got a black man or a white man, it's still a lie. They fabricated a story. If you make all these people black, it's still a lie.
No record.
You just colored it.
Yeah, I've heard that there's actually no record.
Huh?
I heard there's actually no record
No,
about the bondage in Egypt and all
No,
that.
there was no bondage because listen, let me explain to you about servitude, right? In Africa, they do have a form of slavery, right? But it's not the same slavery that you see on the Ten Commandments or you see with Roots. They slavery is like, I capture you, you're my servant, but I won't treat you bad. And to the point that you're such a good servant, you just free yourself, like you got freedom. They didn't cuss you out, they didn't beat you, nothing. You was a prisoner of war, and they just took your servant, and you just had to you take care of the garden, you take care of the house. It's like you still was eating good. You wasn't starving. You was under noblemen or Ashantihinis and Afertis, and these are different rulers, right? And they didn't treat their servants harsh.
Yeah, right.
You say they didn't abuse them, they didn't humiliate them.
Torture.
The European does that because he's a conqueror by blood. He's a predator. He's a beast, and this is what beasts do. He has the alpha male mentality. I gotta be better than everybody. I gotta bungee jump. I gotta jump out of the airplane because he's trying to be better than nature and beat nature. This is his mentality. He's a competitive being. We didn't have those type of mentality, those type of vices. We didn't even have weapons back then. We started creating weapons when we started getting invaders coming and taking over portions of Africa. And they had to start creating weapons to defend themselves against a warlike being. Because they didn't have prisons in ancient times. They didn't have all this stuff because we was unified and we was of one shaped cord and of one tongue. You know what I'm saying? Now that we get these different languages, Spanish, Hebrew, the English language is a bastard language. It's a combination of other languages. This is why in spelling bees, when you spell a language, they say, spell this. They say, can you give me the origin? Oh, it's Greek. And then next thing the kids start spitting out like it's nothing. Because they say, I don't know how to spell it, but unless I know what the origin of it. So they had to find a vocal point. They say a long, like chiropractic or something like that. They say, where it come from? Well, it's Greek in origin. Oh, and they spell it easily because they know it's a spell. That's why they call it a spelling bee. All right, go ahead and finish what you're saying though.
Last thing, but using English and all that. This
Yeah.
is it your position that out of all the 12 tribes, Abraham's descendants, none of them are African? Is that your position?
According to what?
According to
Biblical law, they are.
so
Yeah,
African-
according to the fabricated biblical story, listen what I'm saying again, I'm gonna say it slow. According to the fabrication of this biblical book, it's depicted them as being African.
Okay, so you don't believe that Abraham existed?
He didn't.
He didn't exist?
No.
Okay.
The 12 tribes they were talking about was the 12 constellations. See, that's what I'm trying to tell you. They went into Egypt and saw some stuff and was like, oh, I like this. See, you don't understand the white man. You've been here long enough, but you don't understand the white man. What he don't know, he asks you. Oh, what type of shoes is those? And you tell him, because you want to impress him. How do you make your money? And he always asks you, what does that mean? And then he'll go around and change the whole meaning and give it his own interpretation to it. They do it every day. You've been around white people, they always ask you, what is that you listen to? And why y'all say this? And why y'all do that? They're downloading. And when they download, they change the meaning and they put it in their dictionary, oh, it means this and then no, that's not what it means. If I say this guy's a sim, white men say, oh, he's a person that's not really smart. We look at the word sim as something different. You're a sucker. You just like tricking off, you feel me? But what happened is this. When they came into Africa, they was asking us questions about certain days and we gave them the definition for it and they changed it around. This is how they made evil fair seeming and turned good to bad because they didn't respect our definition, so they started changing stuff around. This is why our master teacher would not give them the meaning for the word Wu-nuwaupu, because he know the white man would give his own definition. He did it with the Ansars. He did it with his Hebrews. Oh, y'all Moors. They ran with that. They've been doing this every time we give them a name. They say, oh, y'all quasi, and they don't understand our doctrine because they want to label us the way they fit, because that's the way they understand things. But they don't understand how we are. And the reason why I'm saying that is that when you look at the 12 tribes of Israel, they went to Egypt and Babylon and saw the 12 constellations of the zodiac. And when you go into Egypt in the temple of Hathor, on the wall, they had the 12 animals. The word zodiac is the Greek word for animals. They got that from the Egyptians. Because the being that was in the center of it was called Tat, which is the creator of humanity, right? You know what I mean? Which is depicted as a what? A hippopotamus. You see the connections? The Caucasian had a problem with the hippopotamus because it represented a woman, the mitochondrial DNA. You hear me? And they knew that the black woman was God because everything comes through the woman. And the white man had a problem with that because the white man don't like women. If you look at the white man's culture and go back as far as you can, they hated women. Look at the Roman and Greek Empire, they suppressed women and they only used women for was reproduction. They did not love them because they had affection for men. This is why this muscular alpha male thing came in. This is how they conquered Africa, because they brought in the male patriarch worship doctrine to suppress the black woman, to take her out of power because she was in charge. And a lot of people don't know that the women were running Egypt. It wasn't the men. They put that there because the Caucasians said this guy ruled, but they couldn't get on the throne without the woman. They don't even talk about all the female rulers because they want to keep it male supremacy. You feel what I'm saying? So the stories that you're talking about with the 12th tribe of Israel and Jesus, the bright and morning sun, you talk about the sun and the son of man was really harsh. All these stories came out of Egypt and these are celestial doctrine. Listen like this. Remember the Lord's Prayer? Can you remember that? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Our kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. That's the Egyptian proverb. That didn't come out the Bible. They stole that from Egypt. The 3 pyramids of Giza are nothing but the physical manifestation of the 3 belts of Orion. Our kingdom come in the Orion as it is in Egypt with the 3 belts. That's what really saying. The heavens talk about the Orion constellation. So these stories that you're reading are plagiarized stories that came from the ancient scrolls and stuff on the walls.
Right, I understand that. So what's real quick,
Go ahead.
What's your position on paganism?
Paganism means this country though. You live in the country, you're pagan.
Exactly what it
It's
is.
basically what?
See, this is what I'm trying to tell you.
No, okay, I'm saying.
I'm gonna tell you.
No, let me, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
What's your, let me be more, what's your position on practice paganism? But what some people call, like some of the Egyptian practices.
Those are Africans.
Well, African,
I know they're both-
Egypt is in Africa.
Yeah, but listen what you're saying though. Listen what you're saying. You
Right,
said,
well, yeah, yes, I'm
how
trying
can
to
you,
get to a point, I understand.
I know you're going there because I heard this question 1,000 times. I'm on the streets every day teaching, right?
Right,
When you say what's your look on paganism, because they was practicing paganism in ancient Egypt,
right.
what did you consider paganism?
Okay, any way that you worship and the way that you pay respect to a higher being.
They never
divine-
worship. They don't worship.
No,
us.
well, I'm saying,
I know, go ahead,
I know
let me
it
talk,
was
go
taken out of context
I
and
know.
going on. I know what the
I
Egyptians
know.
were doing was demonized, and it went from paganism to a transition to
Paganism.
organized.
No, finish. No, let me talk. No, come on, hold on. Go ahead, finish, go ahead.
So did, at the time when paganism was being practiced, I hate to, I know the word is.
I know. No, it's all good. I understand, 'cause we speak English. Go ahead, go
We
ahead.
speak in English.
I got you, go ahead. For lack of a better word, go ahead.
Exactly, so
Yeah.
when paganism was what was misconstrued as paganism.
Yeah.
That the Egyptians were practicing on.
Uh-huh.
At that same time, that same era, the Judaism was also in practice also, because like you said yourself, Judaism is a religion that spawned all other religions, especially
Yeah.
Christianity
Mhm.
and Islam. So
Yeah.
Judaism has go almost not as far, but almost as far as back as
6,000 years.
yeah. So that's an old, antiquated.
Yeah, but
And then once again, like you say, like you don't like the word paganism as it applies to Egypt. I don't like the word religion applied to Judaism.
I understand that. Yeah, okay.
You feel me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a religion.
Yeah,
it's,
I
it's
got
a
you.
people.
Okay, I got you. Now watch this. Who said the Egyptians were pagans? Because you got to understand where it came from. How can you go from one culture, right? You got a culture, whether you're Hebrew or you're whatever, right? And then you go to another culture and say, oh, you're practicing paganism. How can you do that? Because you got your own laws and morality. That's like me coming to your house saying, no, you ain't supposed to cook your eggs like that. You ain't supposed to beat your kids like that. You know what I'm saying? You're coming to my house telling me how to run my family. You don't know me. You don't know my mother. So you can't tell me nothing about my family. I know how to work with them because I grew up with them. The European came into other people's cultures. They call it democracy. This democracy goes back thousands of years ago from Rome. That's why they call it a democracy, and they call the people that run it senators. You know what I'm saying? Then you had the emperor. So what happened is they're bringing in their democracy to overpower your culture because they feel that your culture is too powerful and I can't make money off you. So I'm gonna bring in democracy so I can have you hooked on the American culture where you can go to Starbucks, McDonald's, Walmart's, etc. You hear me? This is what democracy does. I'm gonna indoctrinate you with my doctrine and get rid of your old religion or your old culture. You know what I'm saying? So when they came to Africa, you missed the class, you didn't come here earlier. We was talking about this earlier about evil, Pharisee. The white man takes evil and make it look good. But then what happened with good? Good becomes evil, right? Now here's the thing. The stuff that we as Africans practice, the white man said that's demonic, that's paganism. But dude, the stuff that you do is the same thing, but it's watered down.
Absolutely.
You say that you worship Jesus, Muhammad, and Moses, right? Those are dead people, but you give them praise and you pray to them. Now I say I'm gonna send respect to my grandmother. I don't worship her, it's my grandmother. And I talk to her, I said, Grandma, I need your help. That's ancestral worship to you, so now I'm a pagan. Now watch this. If you had a picture of your grandmother right now, and she died, and you only had one photograph, how precious is that picture to you? Would you pass it down to generation to generation?
Absolutely.
And what was the first instruction when you passed it down to your son?
For him to pass it down.
The first, and what's the second instruction?
To keep it in the condition that like I gave it to him.
That way, because it eventually start getting deteriorated, it'll get messed up. They didn't have cameras 2,000 years ago. So when my grandmother Isis was looking splendid and voluptuous in her body, and I said, you know what? I want to capture my grandmother before she dies. Can somebody carve her real quick? Right. Carve my grandfather too, Osiris, and Har, and my cousin Happy, right? Because they didn't have cameras. And we carved statues. And guess what happened? We passed these statues down from generation to generation. So 2,000 years later, when the white man came to Africa and Egypt and saw the statues, oh, these must be our gods. You hear me?
Right.
You must worship them.
Right.
No, nigga, those are my damn relatives.
Right.
You just don't know them.
That's right.
But you turn around and said, these are gods. These are not gods. These are men and females that ate, slept, laughed, cried like me and you. Blood relatives that pass on to the other side. Because the white man is such a worshiper of anything. He worships dogs, cats, rats, trees, weather, and call these different phenomenons or anthropomorphism Thor and Odin and Loki. And when you do bad things, oh, that's Loki. You hear me? So when he came to Egypt, he saw how we was getting down. Like, these guys are amazing. They got pyramids and temples, and they got water irrigation, and they got architecture. These guys must be gods. Who is? Oh, that's Tahuti. That's one of our teachers. Oh, he must be your god of wisdom. So we'll call him Hermes. Who's that? Oh, that's Bestet. Oh, and she's, no, that's like my relative. Oh, we'll call her Aphrodite. You feel me? So they used to start changing stuff around. You feel me? And they start giving these titles. And then next you know, they start saying, these guys are pagans. Because what happened is they were copying stuff off the walls so fast and so quick, they didn't even sit down and look at what they were translating. This is how these beings end up being black inside this plagiarized book. Because they was writing it down. They didn't know the word Cam means black. They just put them and say, well, we call him Cam. And Cam is the word ham in Hebrew. Right. You hear me? They was copying and then you know the definition. We gave you the definition, but you changed it around. And then we start going to the etymology. They didn't know that years later we were going to start studying etymology of words. They were like, this really comes from this word, this word, this word, and it means this. And they think, oh, these guys, we got to stop York. And, you know what I'm saying? So now they created their own version of magic, and it works for them. And they got you say, oh, the Hebrews. Hebrews are nothing, a bunch of bums. I'm going to tell you why I say they bums. They sit around all day and do nothing but praise the Lord according to this book. God said, Abraham will bless you. Take your son Isaac up to the mountain, tie him up and cut his throat and offer him up to me as a blood sacrifice. This God right here in this book is a blood demon. He asked for blood sacrifice, but he's a spirit.
Come on.
You know what I'm saying? He asked for animal sacrifices. They asked for that in worship, don't they? They asked for human sacrifice. Jesus was a human sacrifice. You should not make it to heaven unless you wash yourself in the blood of the Lamb. That's a bloodbath.
Sprinkle blood on all.
You hear me? But this is what we learn in Judaism, Islamism, and Christism, right? But these are all satanic rituals that came from Roman.
Yep.
You watch Harry Potter?
No.
You know what I'm talking about though, right?
Yeah.
Huh? Do they got dragons in those movies?
I'm not.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Do they got snakes?
Yes.
How about trees, mystical trees that talk and walk and stuff?
Yes.
How about unicorns?
Yes.
How about satyrs that half man, half goat?
Yes.
They got all that in the Bible. But you said that's mythology, but this ain't. They got people with 6 fingers, they got goats, they got shaggy people,
That's right.
people with hairy Esau, all that's right in the Bible. Dragons that was cast out of heaven, beasts that came out of water with 7 heads and 10 horns. It's Harry Potter. Now how did that get in there? Because came out of Rome.
That's
The
right.
Roman Catholic Church. And when you go to Rome, what do you find? You find all type of demigods there. You find Zeus, Apollo. You find Pan, Dionysos, Apollo, Aphrodite, Hermes. These are all great. The Minotaur from Perseus and all that. You know what I'm talking about. We say the Griffin. What they call the 4 living creatures in Revelations.
That's right.
Head with the lion's face, the bird, the bull. That's a griffin in Greek mythology. In Egypt, we call it the Paruti, the Sphinx. Same thing. The 4 living creatures. So they plagiarized everything. The Hebrews are bums. They didn't do nothing. They have not contributed anything to humanity. They had no sciences, no astrology, no nothing. You go to ancient Egypt, Babylon, Rome, they contribute to society. These guys, you know what they do? Abraham, because I bless you, I'm gonna give you the land of Canaan, the land of milk and honey. That's your land. So when Abraham gave, guess what God told him? Kill him. He didn't have the decency to remove and keep up the land. Oh, just kill him. He had to take their land. And guess what happened after that? It went to a famine. So they had to go to Paganism, Egypt to survive. You hear me? Then they said, let my people go. And God told Moses, tell Pharaoh, let my people go. And you're gonna walk from Egypt, Canaan, all the way to Egypt, which takes 3 or 4 months to do a caravan on camels, right?
Right.
He gets there and God hardens Pharaoh's heart and said, no, why would God do that? Why would God run ahead of Moses? I'm gonna just harden his heart to say no so I can destroy him. Then he leaves. They get him out of there, right?
Right.
But then he sends his only begotten son to paganism to Egypt. Dude, this game's being played. This guy talking about Egyptians are pagan, but there's sending prophets there. Every prophet, Abraham went there. Moses lived there. Jesus lived there. Jesus left at the age of Matthew chapter 3, verse 13. Jesus was told, angel came to Joseph in a dream, said, take thy child to Egypt for Haran seeks his death. Took the child and wife to Egypt, stayed there until Haran died. The Lord said, my son shall come out of Egypt. Jesus didn't leave Egypt to the age of 12. Look at the book of Luke. Came back and got baptized at the age of 13. Why would you hide your son in paganism Egypt with sorcerers and demigods? You wasn't here earlier about the snake, with the wood thing, was you?
Right, I heard.
Oh, you heard that. So that's what I'm trying to tell you. This stuff is all made up. This is the spell. This is how the white man stayed, this is how he stayed rich.
Control.
Yeah, nobody knows that. How the white man so successful? It's only business. It's only religion. It's how he does it.
I feel you, but it is, I understand what you're saying, and I, for the most part, I agree with you, but
I understand.
there is a lot of truth in the Bible.
There's a lot of truth for
It has to
everything.
be interpreted.
No, let me tell you why. Let me tell you why there's a lot of truth. No, first of all, there's a lot of truth in all them books.
Right.
But they put their little swag on it. Because what happened is this. In order for me to get your energy, I gotta put something that attracts you.
Yeah.
But it's your stuff that you're attracted to because you feel it, right?
Yeah.
But they put a lot of stuff in there. Because how old are you? About 26?
42 years.
Okay, look good for your age.
Thank
you hear
you,
me?
sir.
When you were younger, there's stuff that you question about this. But I don't know if you remember now, but you asked certain questions like, why this, why that? And they just said, well, you can't answer, you can't question God. God is mysterious, and so on, right? But those were legitimate questions that you asked when you were younger. But nobody answered those questions because you know why? That had nothing to do with you. It was a contradiction to your soul. Now, certain stuff you didn't have to question it because you felt it. But certain stuff you do was like, I'm not feeling that, so I need to ask a question about that. And they told you, you can't question God because God is a mystery. Because that doctrine that you was questioning had nothing to do with you. That was added in there. It didn't make any sense because it didn't go and coincide with nature. I'm gonna be honest with you. Hebrew school is very strong spell, bro. We was in it.
Yeah.
We traveled that school. It's a very dangerous school that we went through. We lost a lot of people in that school. See, but Dr. Yogo has gone to school, a lot of people got stuck in schools. And a lot of people got stuck when we was Nubian Hebrews. I mean, we had on the chemises, we had the yarmulkes on, Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, we had the mezuzah, we practiced the whole thing, right? But we had to come out of that because if you look at it. What they put on their head? With a what? A yarmulke, right?
No, that's European.
No,
Judaism.
that's actually Egyptian.
That's
No, it's Egyptian.
like the bar mitzvahs and all that.
No, it's all Egyptian.
Yes.
No, you're not listening. All this stuff is Egyptian. They got actual carving on the wall where they're doing circumcisions and they had ceremonies, right? The yarmulke that you see on the head, or the tajir that you see on the Muslim head, if you go online and look at the word Ptah, P-T-A-H, right? This is the Egyptian deity who stands like this. And he has a blue yarmulke on his head. You hear me? And the word Ptah means the opener. Because there's no P sound in the Semitic languages, they replace the P sound with an F sound, and you get the word Fatah, or Fataha, or Suratu Fataha, which means the opening. Woo. You hear me? So they show you, you gotta remember this is the spell. Moses was born in Hebrew, but what was he raised at?
Egypt.
Jesus was born in Nazareth, but where was he raised at?
Egypt.
The Prophet Muhammad was born in Medina, but who was he descended from?
Egyptian.
Because his great-great-grandmother name was Hagar, who was the second wife of Abraham, the Egyptian maiden, who father Ishmael, and Ishmael's second son Kedar is the grandfather of the Prophet Muhammad Alameen. And if you look at the Islamic stuff they're doing, a lot of that stuff is Egyptian. All the prayer, the salat, Egyptians did it first. If you look at the different walls, you see Egyptians in different positions.
Yeah.
The thicker piece, the 99 actions of the law, the 99 in the Daro. Everything that you see in these religious books, all is Egyptian doctrine, but it's mixed in with Roman witchcraft and with Druid stuff. And this is what happened is the Hebrew school is the most powerful one because it's the one that gave birth to the other ones, but it came out of Mesopotamia. The Anunnakis doctrine, that's their stuff. And what happened, the reason why it's so easy, because a lot of people have the Anunnaki DNA in you, and it's the reason why it's easy for you to relate to it. If you got more Anunnaki DNA to you, you're going to be the best Hebrew ever because that's their bloodline. These are the blood gods. That's sometimes you have to suppress certain things. This is why you see people jump into the Hebrew doctrine so hard. They don't have nothing to do with Hebrew because it's the Anunnaki blood. It's the monkey genes. You know what I'm saying?
But the Anunnaki, those are the
Sumerian.
Sumerian, like.
Yeah, but they were draconians. They were reptilians.
Right.
Yeah. This had nothing to do with us. We came out of Africa. Those are Mesopotamians. They had nothing to do with us. This is where the white man came from. The white man is nothing but an albino Hindu. That's why they call himself a Caucasus Asian. Because he's the pale Asian, or the dead Asian that came out of Asia. Left Asia and went into Caucasus Mountain because it was too hot for him there. And then migrated into what you call Sweden and Holland. If you look where the Caucasian man is on the lateral angle where Holland and Denmark and them is at, and that's where they went straight to in the mountains where it was more conducive to their complexion. If you look at the real Caucasians that come out of Denmark and Holland and Scandinavia, they're real pale, they got gray eyes, straighter hair, and it's more yellowish. When they mix it with certain Africans or Moors, you get that Tom Cruise, Katie Holmes look, the Caucasian with the darker skin complexion, the Italians and the Portuguese and the Spaniards. You know what I'm saying? Then they mixed in the Scandinavian and you created your Welsh and your Irish and your Scottish. All these tribes are nothing but hybrids. None of those are pure Caucasians. They all mulattoes. The pure blood ones are the ones up in the mountains. You know what I'm saying? So these Caucasians are nothing but albino Hindus. That's why they call themselves Aryans. The word Aryan is the Hindu word for noble. Indo-Aryans are the ones that come out of India, they're from the Dravidians. The Asiatic black man. That's why you see some of the Hindus in Australia who are born with yellow hair and they change, and when they hit puberty, it turns black.
Right.
You ever see that? Because that's the Caucasian gene in them.
Yeah. So you familiar with Zachariah?
Yeah, we read a lot of his books back in the day. Dr. York taught us to read his book before the Holy Tablets came out, because he wanted us to be familiar with the Sumerian doctrine.
Right. What was the Anunnaki? That's the one he depicted as the one who brought man from a primate state.
Yeah, they spit up evolution.
Right.
Yeah, they mess with the monkey genes, though.
So you saying that, okay, so if you know that part of it, so you're
Yeah.
saying Africans
Yeah.
already existed on the African.
Way before that happened. We came out of the water. See, we were the ones that evolved out of the waters. We was called in ancient Egypt, they were called it's actually on the walls of Egypt. They were called the Ogdogs. These were aquatic beings that came out of the waters. What happened is this is the original oldest races on the planet Earth. What happened is when certain beings come here, they had to mix in with the being that's on the planet. Or they won't survive. So what happened is when the Anunnaki was gravitating the Asiatic black man, they needed, certain things were wrong about it, too much deformity, so they needed something to correct the gene. So they went to Africa and kidnapped certain Pt.2s and crossbred it with them. And this is why we got fingerprints and why we got hair. We didn't originally have hair on our bodies. If you look at Africans, a lot of Africans don't really grow facial hairs like that. You know what I'm saying? We got hair because we crossbred it with the Asiatic black man that you call the Hindu. You know what I'm saying? And because we have 9 ether in our blood, it causes the heat from the 9 ether, which is called sun heat genes, causes the straight monkey hair in us to curl up into a 9. When you take a piece of straight fur hair and put it close as you can to a piece of a match or fire, the first thing you do before it catches on fire is start curling up for the heat. That's called what's the word? Concaculate? Congratulate, something where you congratulate.
It's granulation.
Oh, granulation, that's the word I'm looking for. The hair will start congratulating. You know what I'm saying? So it goes into a 9. This is the reason why you're the only species here on the planet Earth that have woolly nappy hair. Hindus, Chinese, Caucasians, Native Americans, Mexicans, everybody has fur. We're the only people that got nigger knots and BB shots. Even there's no animal. Even the sheep don't even have a hair texture. It just has wavy hair, and the way it grows, it gives it appear that it has an afro, but it's not nigger knots and BB shots.
Right.
No animal on the planet Earth has a hair texture, and no human on the planet Earth has a hair texture. Your hair is actually extraterrestrial. Because the blood is in you, it's not from this planet. This is what makes us unique, and Caucasians know this. This is why he got to keep you here in America so he can get your blood.
Right.
I was always told that your hair, not only our hair, but our wide nostrils and nose,
Yeah.
big lips, dark skin, was based on our geographical position to the equator. Like you said about the heat. The
Yeah.
heat that's not only,
No,
it doesn't only manipulate your hair
Yeah.
like that, it manipulates your skin, it gives you melanin.
I heard that one millions of times from all these Caucasian and so-called black, so-called scholars, right? And here's the question I asked them. That sounds good. You call it evolution. You know, you go to climate, or go to a colder climate, right? Your body goes to changes, right?
Adaptation.
How long the Eskimos been in North Pole? Niggas still dark. Huh? How long has lions, tigers, orangutans, hyenas, giraffes, zebras been living in Africa? And I don't see none of their hair. What's that word again?
Granulation.
I don't see their hair granulating. They in the sun all day. Africans go in huts at least, outside of pyramids or temples when it gets hot. They don't have no shelter like that in the Serengeti. So I'm trying to figure out how come their hair ain't evolving? How come they not evolving? You gotta explain that to me. It sounds good with humans, right? I don't see none of these animals with wide nostrils and stuff like that.
Right.
That's the Caucasian hypothesis.
As far as the Eskimos, obviously, Eskimos originally hunter-gatherers. They would move and shift with the climate.
We know they're nomadic. Yeah, just like Indians are too.
Yeah, they would move and shift with the climate.
Okay, watch this. But don't use that one. How about porpoises, seals? They don't have pale skin. How about penguins? They black and come on, dude. There's a lot of,
No, I mean, I don't say.
no, what happened is that when you're dealing with evolution, right? You say that according to Caucasians, they say you'll evolve according to your surroundings, right?
Right.
You got certain creatures that have melanin inside their complexion that gives them a certain color. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And in colder climates than we can used to. Now the Caucasians is in Europe. Europe is not colder than Antarctica. And you got big creatures there that have darker complexion or color. You know, sea lions have grayish, dark, and some are brown.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? And they in cold subatomic waters, like below freezing.
But listen, but respectfully, listen to your position. We talked about the ultraviolet rays of the sun manipulating humankind. Then you're talking about sea life that spends a large portion of their life underwater.
Yeah, I understand
void
that
of
though.
the sun rays.
But you're not listening to what I'm saying. But they also on ground also too, because they're mammals. Porpoises, seals can't live underwater. They can swim in the water, but they breathe oxygen like anybody else. What I'm saying is that you got a lot of different species that you don't even know of that have different skin tone. But then you got animals that's inside of the jungles of of Africa that been in the jungle for a long period of time and been under 114 to 120 degree temperatures. And I don't see their hair kinking up. You hear me? I don't see the skin of hyenas is getting brown or dark brown. The Caucasian is one of the evolution environment thing, because this is how he's trying to say we came from. Because we left Europe and went to Africa, we got darker. So that he can say, I was here before y'all. Now, this is the question I asked the Caucasian. Okay, what if I agree with you? Yeah, I agree with that. How did your hair get nappy? If we evolved from y'all, right? How did our hair come from straight to nappy? Explain that. I can make nappy hair straight, or put a hot comb through it or some chemicals, but tell me how that fur that you don't know lots of hair turned into nigger knots and BB shots. I asked them like all day, they dumbfounded. All that hot popsicles go out the door. I asked him, how does the straight hair get nappy? He can't answer that. He can't. If the sun doesn't make your hair nappy, it's the sun, he genes in you that does it. They don't have it. And he can't answer that question. We can answer that question. But when I ask them that question, they can't answer it. Because they be trying to come all this Mendel and Darwin stuff and evolution. I said, okay, if it was about like an argument, I agree that, you know, by evolution. How does the hair texture evolve from straight to wool? You can ask them that question when you see them next time. They won't answer it. They can't answer it. They don't have a science for it. And they don't even have a hypothesis for it either. They can't even come up with a scientific guess. So they have to come here to Malachi York because he's the only one that can break that down.
Exactly. Exactly.
He's the only one that got the information.
Checkmate.
It is what it is, man. Nobody has the science in the 90s like we do.
Right.
Caucasians showed you stuff how to destroy your nines, but he don't show you how to build your nines. Any other questions? That's it? Any other questions? Yeah. This is the last question right here.
Could you kind of walk through the evolution of the Taurites to become the Taurites as opposed to like the Anunnaki? Was there an intervention as far as them the Taurites coming out of
Yeah, there was an intervention.
Okay,
The Nagato, you call them the Tiro
Yeah.
of ancient Egypt, intervened
okay.
and sped up that, and actually crossbred that gen. See what happened is this: when the Taro came in, they were terraforming
Mhm.
this planet, right? What happened is they couldn't survive on this planet because their body is from a tri-solar system. Meaning that it's like if you was to go to a certain part of the country that your body's not used to, you're not going to survive there very long. So the reason why we can go in cold climates now because they have created a certain type of clothes for us to hang out in Alaska, in Antarctica, you feel me, in Oregon. You know what I'm saying? Back in the day, you couldn't even go there because you don't have enough clothing. They don't even have what you call that sub-zero type of clothing for us. Insulation, that's the word I'm looking for us to do that back then. You know what I'm saying? But they do now. So we can go in any region because of the technology that allows us with different clothes. So what happened, these beings had to create a species that was grown from this planet. Protozoa, it's like I had to put, in order for me, I give an example, War of the World, I keep bringing this up all the time because it's a good movie with Tom Cruise. When the aliens were attacking them, they couldn't beat them. But what happened is aliens came out the ship and interacted with the atmosphere and it killed them because they wasn't supposed to eat of anything on the planet because their bodies don't have what? Any immunities to what they were eating, so that's what killed them. The bees know this science, so they couldn't just come here and eat stuff off the planet. Just like you couldn't leave America and go to Africa and just eat stuff like that without a shot. Or you'll get malaria and die. You know what I'm saying? So they had to give you some type of form of malaria in order for you to build up antibodies. So you can build up your immune system to be able to go over to Africa and breathe and drink the water. If you don't get the shot, you're going to die from malaria. Ain't no question about it. You know what I'm saying? These beings knew the science, so they put their genetics inside the ocean through, you know what I'm saying? And allowed that seed to germinate over billions of years. From a simple protozoa to amoeba, and it evolved. And what happened is when they saw that at a certain stage it was evolving and was coming out of the water, they intervened and said, okay, now we can crossbreed with this now because it has what we need inside the antibodies. So their genes have been upgraded from the planet. It's like Avatar. They couldn't survive on Navi, so the Avatar had to be created for them to put their consciousness into this body. This is what the Nadaro did. They created a body that had the antibodies by evolution. And when they evolved to a certain stage, this is when they intervened and combined it with their DNA so they can take in the antibodies now into their body. So the next being or the hybrid, they were creating hybrids. They create a hybrid. Now this hybrid has every day to survive on the planet. And they transfer their consciousness into this hybrid body. They call it incarnation. You call it avatar. In Arabic, we call it Elamutajessa. In our language, we call it Pamanzal. Or Manzal, which means like incarnated being. To be physical again. You know what I'm saying? Or physical, incarnate. It means to be physical. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
And this is how they evolved.
Yeah.
See, what happened is every species that was coming from outside this solar system was coming to this planet.
Mm-hmm.
This is why you see people with different blood types. How does blood, this is another thing as a Caucasian, how do blood types evolve? They can't answer that. If everything came from O, then where did AB and RH negative come from? How does blood evolve into another blood type? They couldn't answer that question. Does the environment cause that? I guess. How? How does it mutate? How does the sun causes, or cold weather causes the blood to change from one blood type to another blood type? They can't answer that question. So different species were coming here and mixing it with the same beings to create their avatar. You feel me? Because they needed also the evolutionary person that was coming out of the waters, or that being, so they can also create their own hybrid to be able to sustain their life on this planet. And this is why you see Negro, Caucasians, Hindus, Indians with different body features. When you go to certain parts of China, like villages, you're seeing the same faces. There's people like almost like twins, but they got the same genetic makeup. You know what I'm saying? If you look at old pictures of Africa in the 1800s, you see this brother right here? They look like him. And guess what? The women look exactly like them. With hair, with boobs hanging out. If you look at two female dogs, a male dog, a German Shepherd, right? How can you tell the difference between male and female?
Genitals.
That's it, right? You know, the
Yeah.
genitals, you like, it looks the same. You would know, see, in Africa, that's how it was. We had the same genetic makeup. You see that girl, sister right there with the head wrap? Every female would look like her. But so would the men. The same genetic makeup, because there's no outside DNA to mutate the features. But then when another race comes in and mix in with her, you create a new variation. Now, because she has an alkaline nose, broad nose, but it's long. She has full lips, high cheekbone, right? That's a look. Now, somebody might come in with a more pointed nose, skinny lips. By her mixing it with her, you just create a variation. Now, the child might come out with a pointed nose but bigger lips, or it might come out with skinny lips and a bigger nose. You hear me? And it won't have a high cheekbone, it have a low cheekbone. It won't have hips, it have flag around the waist. So now you created a hybrid from intermixing. Now you create a new feature, a new variation. This is what happened in Africa when they came in. They started mixing different different Europeans came in, mixed in with the African, and it would create random looks. This is why different African tribes start breaking off, and you got the same people from the same region, but they look different because they were being mixed in, or the vine was tied in with a European, and this is why you see different features in Africa in the same region. Somebody got tall, some small, but they're supposed to be the same tribe. You know what I'm saying? The females, if you look at the pictures back in the days of an African male and female, they were like brothers and sisters, because that's the same genetic makeup. The only reason why it became feminine, a feminine look, because somebody said, well, that looks more feminine than her, because this is my perception, because this is from the interbreeding and the different combinations that came from it. So somebody said, I like that look better. So if 100 men said, I like her look better, that make her the beautiful woman in the world. It's just 100 men disagree, and only 2 say, I don't like her way she looked. It's all perception, and this is what they pushed on us through the media. There's no such thing as an ugly or good-looking person. And every being had to mix in order for them to survive on this planet.
You know, the reason why I'm asking, because, you know, the tablets, you know, is breaking everything down. I was just kind of wondering the step from coming out the water.
It's in the tablet.
Yeah, I know.
It's called a Demetrius.
Yeah, I know, I got you. On the water.
Yeah.
Okay, and then, I don't understand what you're saying now, because evolutionary man came about.
Yeah.
And they, because I'm sort of, I had to separate the Anunnaki version of the Daru version.
Yeah, because no. What happened is the Anunnaki were also conducting. See, this is the problem people got. There were other beings that was here on the planet Earth. They all were conducting their own experiments and crossbreeding with this being. This is where the confusion coming in. Every different species had their own creation story. But the creation story only deals with their genetics. But what happened is when you convert to their doctrine called their religion, then you be feeling, okay, Moses and Adam and Eve, that's according to their religious stories. So when you talk about the Adam and Eve story, even though we see it as black when you read the Bible, this still goes back to the Hindus.
Mm-hmm.
But this is talking about but it's not talking about a black man though. But they tell you it's a black man inside the book the way you read it. But it's really was talking about the creation of the Caucasian race of 6,000 years ago.
See, yeah.
This is why the white man walks around so cocky. I was here first. He only says that because you're inside religion. Inside religion, that is actually true. But when you go outside religion and go back to Africa, to Egypt, which he don't want you to go, like I said earlier, all your prophets were descended from these Egyptians according to this book, right?
Right.
But the people that follow these prophets said the Egyptians were pagans. But your prophet's a pagan.
Right.
Because your prophet was born, raised, speaking, living, and eating as an Egyptian. Jesus Christ lived in Egypt to the age of 12. That means he was speaking the Egyptian language.
Right.
He was wearing their clothes.
Went to Egyptian school.
If you look at the Egyptians, look at the wall. You see what here? Look at this. He was wearing this. You can't live in Egypt. You don't wear robes in Egypt. They wasn't wearing robes back then.
That's right.
They wore this. You hear me? They didn't wear no yarmulke, the stuff that you call religious stuff. They wasn't wearing none of that stuff. Women walking up their breasts out. Jesus walking around, and if he was a young child, he had a bald head and he had a side lock out the side of his head, because that's required for the kids to wear in Egypt. They called it the youth braid. And he had to wear a collar, and he had to be a scribe. You hear me? That is a requirement in Egypt for children. You had to become a scribe, a writer. You know what I'm saying? And he did that. Moses was raised in the house of Pharaoh. That means he had to know the religious laws and the spiritual laws of ancient Egypt, because he could be the next Pharaoh. Why did God give Moses the 10 Commandments? He already knew the laws, but the same laws that in the 10 Commandments you can find in ancient Egypt.
All 613.
You hear me?
That's right.
It's a contradiction. These are games being played.
Absolutely.
Prophet Muhammad, his whole practice was Islamic, but it was mixed in with Indo-Arab and Catholicism. You hear me? But the people that follow these prophets dog Egypt. But they never question that your prophets come out of Egypt. Because they don't want you going back to Egypt, because Egypt goes back 1,000 years ago before your Adam and Eve story.
Millions.
And they don't want you going there because, you know why they don't want you going there? Do anybody know why? Because you look at that picture, you can actually find your features on that. You can't find it in Greece. You don't like Zeus. You ain't gonna find it in India. You don't like Krishna. You ain't gonna find it in China. You don't like Confucius or Buddha. You ain't gonna find it raw as Apollo and Jupiter. But when you go to Africa, Egypt, or Mali, or any place with pictures of us, you're gonna find your face on that wall. You might not find it in this temple, but you might find another temple. And it might look like some of your relatives, but you're gonna find somebody who look like your people. And they got your same complexion. But they don't want that in you because that will wake you up and it'll give you self-pride about who you are and make you feel special. But as a Hebrew, they look at you like you're just a nigga that converted to Judaism. I mean, you know how it is, man. You know how the racism is. I was a Jew at one time. I was a Hebrew, so I know how it was, too. They don't respect you at all. And we wasn't like the guys yelling on the streets. And we didn't know that. We was just like, we had the guard, everything. They just look at you like you just a convert. Just like a Christian use a convert, and a Muslim use a convert. Those guys only look at you like you're part of the crew. You're a black Muslim, you're a black Christian, and you're a black Jew. Because if you was actually with them, they wouldn't have to say the word black on it. Now if I say African, do I have to put black on African? Do I have to put black on African? No. I say African? Why?
Because Africans are black.
But if a white man lives in Africa, you call him a what?
White.
Like African. That means you ain't from there. You're a convert.
Afrikaner.
You're a settler. And with that, I have to shut down class. It's getting late. Thank you. Bring y'all coming out. We're here every week. I want to answer your question, but we won't go into the next one.
All right, appreciate it.
I know. I won't go home just more, reading, and we can go into some more though.
All right.